front of ASBA, not gonna break up with you.
We're almost ready on YouTube. I just want to make sure.
ASBA, not gonna break up with you.
Okay, we are good on YouTube, so let's get going. We're almost ready on YouTube. I just want to make sure.
You're getting feedback. Do you have two playing at the same time?
No, oh. I turned it off, so we should be good. Is that better?
Yes. Okay. You have the floor. It's all up to you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Bacon, and I am Leadership Development Manager for the Arizona School Boards Association. And I just finished 3 terms on a school board here in Phoenix in the Paradise Valley Unified School District. So I am no longer an official board member. I consider myself a recovering board member because I don't think it ever leaves you. I think it's always with you. So I am so excited to be with you today and look forward to meeting all of you. So if we could just do introductions, that would be great. Tell me your name, how long you've been on the board, and anything you want to share about yourself. So I'm going to let the board president direct this. So it's easier for you to do that than me. So whoever you want to go first.
Okay, I started one into the table and come around. So we'll start with Mr. Guthrie.
Okay. Hi, my name's Lonnie Guthrie. I've been on the board for 2 years.
Hi, Lonnie.
Hi, Judy.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Rodriguez. This is my first year.
Okay, great.
Welcome. Day. Yeah.
First 9 days, is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, and
I'm Rodney Hopkins. I'm starting my 2nd term on the board and now my 2nd year as the board president.
Great, thanks.
I'm Trish Olson, and this is day 9.
Day 9, great.
Hello, Ms. Bacon. My name is Dr. Soltero, and this is 6 months and 8 days as superintendent.
Yeah, but you have a long history in education, so
thank you very much.
We can't disregard that. That's for sure. So what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at the board self-evaluation that the board did in the fall of last year. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll talk a little bit about board self-evaluation, and then we'll get into kind of looking at the results of the evaluation that was done. So first of all, we want to talk a little bit about why we'd evaluate, what the purpose of that is, and why that's important. We'll review and discuss the evaluation results, identify strengths and weaknesses, and not weaknesses, but we call those opportunities, right? Not weaknesses, they're opportunities for improvement. And then we'll talk a little bit about what you want to do with this information, because data is great, but maybe you want to do something with it. So we'll talk a little bit about that too, as we are going through this. So why evaluate? Board self-evaluation is not something that all school districts do, governing boards do. It is in board policy and BAA. It's not statutorily required. So I think sometimes boards have a little wiggle room with evaluation. But I've been on a board that did evaluation every single year, and it was really helpful to the functioning of the board. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the reasons that we do evaluation and why it's important. We know that it's a best practice for highly effective boards, because boards play a significant role in success for students. And so that senior leadership team of the board superintendent is critical to the health of the school district. Boards in high achieving districts share characteristics that are very different from those found in low achieving districts. So effective boards positively impact achievement, no matter the composition of students in their community. So the other thing that it does is it provides accountability to your community to demonstrate that you are not only wanting your employees, the superintendent, and your students to be accountable, but that you hold yourselves accountable. So that's an important part of it as well. The other thing that it does is it provides data, and data is great when it's used in a really positive way. So we like to talk about using data as a flashlight, not a hammer. So it's a tool, like a flashlight that should be used to illuminate opportunities for the board, but it shouldn't be used as a hammer. And just as we ask our teachers in classrooms to look at data and use data to inform instruction, we can use data as board members to inform and improve on governance and professionalism and the way the team functions. So we are going to be talking about what people's perceptions are, and sometimes that can raise some feelings that are a little bit difficult to take, and sometimes you might not agree with what other people think, and that's okay. This is an opportunity to grow and not point fingers and talk about the way you feel, and really assume positive intent for everyone who is participating in the project. So this is the board self-evaluation. You had 6 participants, 5 board members and the superintendent. There were 69 questions around content across 5 different standards. And this was how those questions broke down. Conduct and ethics were 19 of them, vision was 10, structure 19, accountability 11, and advocacy 10, just so you kind of can see the way those split out. And you got the results. So I hope you all have the results in front of you. And they're kind of look like this. This is just one page of it, but we'll look at all of those. So each of the pillars has multiple survey questions, and they're grouped as benchmarks so that we can understand what it is that you're looking at. Those benchmarks will help us drill down to decide if there's a particular pillar or standard that you want to focus on, or often there's themes that run through the results of the board self-evaluation. And so we'll look at that as we're going through the document and getting feedback from each of you on the results of the survey. So I did send you a little homework. I don't know if all of you had a chance to do it, but what we want to do in this first step is really look at the report and dig into a little bit what were your strengths as a board, and what are things that you have questions or concerns about, or an opportunity to for you to work on. Again, you didn't have to do it for every single question, but those that you thought were particularly important. So first of all, I just want to get a sense of what was everyone's overall impression of the survey results. And in general, were there any surprises? We'll talk about specific surprises, but was there anything that stood out to you?
Well, Ms. Baker, I want to make sure that you're aware that the 2 new board members, of course, were not on the board when we did the survey. So
yeah, that makes it a little bit tricky, but yeah. I'm going to assume that you had a knowledge of the board and we're following along in the months leading up to the election. So hopefully this will make a little bit of sense. And if it doesn't, just stop me and say, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, because you've got a lot of information since you were elected. So anything jump out at anyone from those results?
When I first got them, what struck me the most was how it seemed like they were kind of all over the place. There were, some questions where kind of like on the breakdown here, where just about all 5 of the possible answers were given to the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think some of that is, as you said, it's each person answering individually what their beliefs are. And I think, I know myself, having done it, I was kind of, at times, since we've had Dr. Saltero here for over 6 months now, at times I was answering the questions based on what had been going on in the previous 3.5 years I was on the board, and then some of them I was like, okay, well, let's look at what's going on now. So I wasn't clear on how best to answer some of those. So
Right.
tried to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, the change in leadership will make a difference in the results of this. And, you know, on one hand, it's good that you did it now so that if you do it again in a year or 2 years, you'll really see the progress that you've made in the areas that you might have concern around. Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
I think for me, when I was taking a look at some of the results, I wondered if the previous board had come up with certain goals that they were going to start working towards, because I see some improvement in areas that I felt were needing attention. And that might be because of the change of leadership. But I do see some of the places where we had opportunity to grow that I've seen improvement. So.
Well, that'll be great for you to share while we're going through this, because I think, you know, and from a perspective that isn't kind of inside baseball, right? You were kind of on the outside looking in, and that'll be a good perspective to share with everyone. Any surprises for you, Dr. Sotero?
Well, just going through the different questions, just thinking of the best that I could from July 1 to right now. So I just tried to put like trying to look at every question more with from a positive outlook, even if maybe it wasn't all selected as always or most of the time. Most of the time, the answers, I would always try to look at each answer wherever there was at least 60%, some, most of the time, or always, as far as something positive to build on. I just tried to give examples of different questions that maybe could be used as examples of each question that shows where there's potential to build from.
Yeah, yeah, great. Anyone else? Okay. I always tell people I'm good at voluntolding you to speak, but I'm also a parent, so I can wait for a long time for people to answer me. Lonnie, anything from your perspective?
The feeling of the board at the time that we did this survey is certainly not the feeling of the board at this point.
Okay.
So that's just the difference is night and day, right?
Mhm.
So turn around, we did this now or in a year, I'm sure the results are going to be a lot different than they are right now.
Okay. Great. Well, we'll just have to think about that as we're going through the results to decide, you know, what needs to be focused on and what doesn't. Some of these things may have been improved just with new leadership, you know, in terms of the superintendent board relationship. So what I'd like to do is go through each of these standards, and I'd like you to identify those that you thought were a strength. And I'm gonna keep notes here on my desk at home, and I'll provide all that information to you in a written form. Everything that we talk about tonight, we'll put in written form. I'll put in a written summary, and so you'll have that information, not just to refer back to, but also it can be used for part of the minutes too, if you need that. So what I'd like to do is just with each person go through standard 1 and just identify for me which of those you thought were strengths, things that you were doing well or doing pretty well, and then we'll go back and do the opportunities. So who wants to go first?
For standard one, I put a check mark because I just felt like there was significant improvement in the conduct and ethics.
Okay.
So that was one of my surprises, because I've seen significant improvement in the relationship and ethics. And I think the policy handbook that was given to us, there was a lot of work that was done around that. So I think that was one I put a check mark on.
Okay.
That we're doing well now.
Great. So that was question 1 in conduct and ethics?
Actually, for the whole standard, as I looked through
Whole
it.
standard, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good. You've seen improvement in that. That's great. Was there any strength that kind of jumped out at you that you thought? And I went through and did my own little, here are some things that are really good and things that you might want to focus on. So tell me, were there any, what number question did you have that were strengths? Which ones did you put a plus sign next to?
So number 4 is a strength. Question 4.
As a strength, yes.
Number 4 and number 10 as well, to me.
Say that again, Rodney. I'm sorry.
I think number 4 and number 10 were good strengths in category 1.
Okay, great. And that goes all the way to question 22. So if you look, that goes to from page 1, or I'm sorry, page 5 to page 10. So it's all of those questions. It's 22. There's 19 questions in that section. So because we start at question 4.
Ms. Bacon,
Yes.
can I just answer from I know here it has the number 5, so that I'm thinking that's the 5 board members who took the survey. Can I give my perspective just from how I reviewed this?
Absolutely.
In a superintendent?
Please.
I really like the standard 1 conduct and ethics benchmark of success D on page 8. Questions 13, 14 caught my attention. Question 13 has to do with ASBA model policies based on research-based best practices. And what came to mind for me was the policy advisories, how we follow the policy advisories. I also just put here for an example of the law conference that we attended in September, but also I put the ASBA new board member orientation, December 14th. So just trying to answer it from my perspective as a new superintendent. I saw question 13 and 14 as a plus, and I also believe the response rate supports that. So just looking at that information.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Anything else that jumps out as a strength? One of the things that I thought was strong was question 4. And I think that's one that Rodney also identified, that that is, basing your decisions on what's best for student success is what this is all about. So that was positive. And I think, there was a couple of some of the times, but I find that it often people aren't, if we don't articulate things that way, they don't think that they're doing that. So, so that was one that I saw as a strength as well. Anything else?
Well, just looking at the data, it seems like question 19 had one of the most positive answers. Answer ranges.
Work with the superintendent. Yeah. And that is really positive. And given that it's a new relation, now there's a new relationship, having that strong base before well, when you did this too, right? You did this when Dr. Sotero was there. So that speaks really well. That's really positive thing for you to be proud of at this point. Anything else in that section that you want to point out as a strength?
Question 16 is also another strong one.
I was just looking at.
Question 16. Yeah, to present to the board and be involved in that. That's great. So, okay. And then the next one we're going to talk about is putting a check mark or identifying the ones that you had some concerns around and thought that there needed to be some improvement around. So, what were those?
Mine was number 9.
Number 9,
Yeah,
set goals for improvement.
yeah, because there was, I was a little shocked that there were no goals set.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, for me, number 8 is also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're on the right path now. Now you just have to keep up with it. Remember to do it annually. So, and the one thing that's really great about using our tool is next year, if you take it, it will show you what it was this year, and then it'll show you what it is for the current year. So you have like a continual kind of, you can compare results question by question, and you can literally with color see the improvement you've made. So that's really a really nice way to utilize the tool as well. Okay, what else? What else jumped out at you as an opportunity to improve?
Question 15.
15, okay. Yeah.
And I think if we were to take this evaluation today, that is one that has improved since then.
Mm-hmm.
I know Dr. Saltera does collaborate and work together with colleagues from all over the state on this.
No, I'm speaking, if I can answer that from my perspective, I see that as, I put a check mark also because the data showed 40%, but I also put here like, where there's a lot of potential for this. And I just think of that new board member orientation, where we had 2 of our new board members collaborating with board members in Phoenix from across the state. We were sitting with board members from, I think, Phoenix Elementary School District, Concho School District, and just we're networking and moving in a positive direction. So yes, it's a check mark, an area for growth, but we're already taking the steps to make that happen.
Yeah. And I know Rodney's you attend ASBA events, but that's always been my favorite part of those events is networking with other people and getting ideas from other school districts and other board members about what they're doing, how they're doing it. And I know that every time I would come back from a conference, I'd make an appointment with my superintendent and be like, okay, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. And I'm sure he was like, okay, can she just stop going to things? Because every time she comes back, all she wants me to do is more work. But it is so, I think so powerful and energizing to do that networking.
Well, it was nice at the law conference because both Dr. Saltero and I both went, so we were kind of networking both together and individually, and then getting back to
Yeah. Yeah. What else stood out to you?
I think number 2 stood out, but or 22, I mean, but number 22 is another one that I think we've made substantial improvements on the last 2 months, especially with all the work Ms. Robertson did on the board handbook.
Mhm.
That they put into place in December.
Great.
I think that's what you referred to.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
One of the things that I saw that kind of was a theme, and maybe you saw it as well, is it around question 6. And let me look at my notes here. Question 6 around, this seems like there's a communication theme going throughout this, a little bit in terms of providing information to the public, and then in some other of the pillars, I saw communication as kind of a theme as well. So I don't know if that's something that you all think you should be thinking about or looking at, but just informing the community. What are your thoughts on that?
That's something that I had noted actually in standard 5 for advocacy and transparency. So it was something that I did notice.
Okay.
But I had kind of just put a note for myself for as far as like transparency and communication on
Okay.
standard 5, but it's definitely part of standard 1 as well.
Yeah. Okay. And I think it's good to have new people looking at this too. I appreciate that, because you have a better sense of what you didn't know before you sat in that seat, and the information that maybe is available and just hasn't been shared in the past, or in ways that were consumable, maybe. So, okay, so I'm gonna check mark by number 6 as well, if that works for everybody. Okay. Anything else in that standard 1 that you want to talk about? One of the ones that I was wondering about was question 18. It's treat all individuals, including fellow board members, staff, students, and community members with respect. Is that something, because it's the majority of people said some of the time. I'm assuming that's something you want to be all of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's something that's improved with leadership and with changing dynamics on the board.
From my perspective, yes, it's improved greatly.
Okay. Great. So that's why you didn't identify that, and I did, because I'm not experiencing what you're experiencing. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that there's improvement on that. Okay, so let's go to standard 2, which is vision, and talk about that a little bit. First, let's talk about things that you thought were strengths, and then we can go to things that you think were opportunities for improvement. So that's questions 23 through 32. And pages 11 through 14.
Ms. Bacon?
Yes.
Well, if you look at the data, 23 and 24, the percent shows, question 23, 60%, and question 24, 80% most of the time or always. So that's a plus.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a positive. Also, what I found as a plus as well, from my perspective, as a new superintendent, was question 26. there's at least 40 to 60% of going in the right direction as far as including stakeholders when developing and revising the district's vision. We were able to connect and get on the same page more with the previous board and myself before the end of the year, December's meeting. But we have started in that direction as far as with question 26, including stakeholders when developing and revising the district's vision. And I'm answering this again from my perspective. Classified and certified have given back feedback to administration on their expectations, whether it be paraprofessionals, our special education department, maintenance team members, certified staff, giving their expectations for administration on and how we need to go forward and working with our board. But also with the vision cards, just asking staff members to give back their input and just how then we can, as the senior leadership team, governing board and superintendent, use that information and work with each other collaboratively moving forward. So we're figuring out how to be more efficient with that. It's a learning process, but at least we're starting in the right direction.
Right. That's great. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, I've definitely seen question 26. I've seen a big improvement in the new administrative leadership. Not even just from the staff stakeholders, but from community stakeholders as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. Great. Anything else stand out?
Question 32.
32.
Yeah.
Great.
I would like to see that more of most of the time or always reviewing student achievement, because we have to constantly be checking in, are our students doing well, what can we do better for our students? So I don't like how big the some of the time is.
What I'll tell you is that we receive more information about student achievement in the last 3 months than we have in the last 2 years.
And I see a lot of it too from our upper grades. I want to see more from our primary as well.
So we're actually now receiving a lot more information about how we're doing in the school, how our students are doing. So we're a lot more information. So, and I necessarily did the math testing. So, yeah, it's a lot better. That information flow.
Yeah, and sometimes it really clearly tells us what areas we need to try to put better.
Yes.
The presentations Mr. Casey does when he comes in here invaluable.
And I agree exactly 100% with what you're saying. As a school board, we have no way of knowing how we're doing at the school unless that information is presented to us. So we can be walking along in La La Land thinking that all is well and great. And then suddenly we see test scores and achievement, and suddenly we realize that we have issues, right? But without getting that information, there's no way we know. There's just no way. Dr. Sotero has been very good, Mr. KC, about giving us presentations for the last few months that we can look at and say, okay, we do have issues here at the school with what's going on scholastically. And I know COVID was a big part of that, and I recognize that. But it's all about that. Yeah. It's all about getting that review and knowing how we're doing. Everything else is window dressing, right? The scholastic of the kids is the part that.
And I really appreciated the goals that were set to remedy some of our lower test scores. But getting that regular feedback to see, okay, is what we're doing working? Yeah. I would want to see that regular just information as far as student achievement.
Ms. Bacon, what I put here for question 32, I just, to echo some of the board members' comments, September and November, we did have governing board meetings where we reviewed 2021-22 data, the AD letter grade, but also the MAP, measures of academic progress or formative assessments. So there was multiple occasions where we did go over the data through PowerPoint presentations, sharing the information with the board members as well. They could have that data, breaking down the AZELA, the Arizona English Language Learner Assessment,
Right.
where we are. So but we can always work to do that more and more on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's one of those, this is definitely a question that in other districts that I've worked with is kind of like the board is saying, we don't get this information. And the superintendents are sometimes like, what do you mean? But that's just because the superintendent's in it all the time, right? They're immersed in it. And sometimes forget to share that information with boards, just because they're so busy doing the work. So I'm glad to see that you've had those presentations. I think they're critically important for school boards to know the direction your students are headed, what's working, what's not, so that you can provide the support, the resources, the structure that you need, that they need to be successful. So knowing what works and what doesn't is, I think, really important in terms of measuring student success. So that's exciting information. Anything else as an opportunity?
So definitely under 28 and 30, opportunities for.
I think all three of them are.
Yeah, all three of them.
I think all three of them are.
Yeah, I had all three of those marked as well. And I wonder, it just sounds like there's been more communication with stakeholders and both internal and external. So maybe it is not as much of a need, but it sounds like something you should be thinking about, as you're going through this. And again, that might just have to do more with communication, strategic plan. Are you working on a strategic plan right now?
We're in the process of getting there, Ms. Bacon. We did get started with the expectations of administration from our stakeholders. Also with the vision cards, just getting feedback.
Mhm.
But to make a long story short, what we have to do, what I have to do a better job of is with the board, making sure we're on the same page at the same time, and just working together more on the vision, the action steps of the mission statement. That's going to give us a foundation to move forward with the strategic plan, making sure we're collaborating on it, all of us at the same time. So we're getting better at that. First of all, myself, but we have a good foundation. But I know, and Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Guppy remember this, that we want to try and get together on the same page more, and then move forward together.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, that was one other area that I kind of identified as strategic plan, vision, mission. There seemed to be some opportunities there. Okay, so then let's go to standard 3, which is structure. And that is, let's see what we are. Page 15, starting with question 33 and going to page
22 or 21.
21. Yeah, with question 51. So 33 to 51. That's another big pillar. So first, what stood out to you as strengths?
The last part, I think the financial part, as far as the financial status, budget process, I think that was a big plus. Especially the 47 through questions 47 through 51.
Yeah. So like overall question 38, which is really strong answer with 8%, and you always are most of the 10 category.
Yep.
And what I was going to say, that it's included in the vote.
I think one of the strengths of our district, we've done for a long time, we have great business managers. They have excellent audits, they very great budget. They seem to be right on top of it, you know that, right? I think both ladies I've been on the board with, have been business managers. And I think that the school has always worked very hard within the limits of money to provide the best faculty, the facility that they could provide. I think a lot of money has been spent on the structure of the school over the last 10 years, 15 years. And I'm not saying that I understand completely the way that funding is given to schools for taking care of the buildings and the campus, but it seems like we've done what I think is a pretty good amount. We built this building here, and because that was mainly insurance money with it. But yeah, so I think those are our strengths.
So maintaining kind of the physical structures in ways that are positive.
Right now, don't we have a big working?
Yes, sir.
Almost every roof.
Yes.
Big working project going on.
Ms. Bacon,
Yes.
can I just echo the comments, questions 38, 39, and 40? By looking at the data, question 38, 80%, most of the time are always 39 and 40 are also in that 60% area of some direction moving forward.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give some examples. We've implemented beyond textbooks to get started this year. We established a partnership with Vail Unified School District under the board's leadership. In August, all of the staff received training from beyond textbooks, the Vail School District staff. In August, the leadership committee also received training, and our most recent leadership committee training came from one of Vail's assistant superintendents, just on how they got it started. And one thing the assistant superintendent shared with our leadership committee was it takes time. It's going to take time. It's a process. And so I believe when you look at question 40, curriculum implementation resources, that we're on the right track of having a curriculum framework with beyond textbooks and just talking about it more and more with our staff. But it is going to take time, but it's positive in the right direction.
Yeah. Any change takes time. That's why patience is such a great virtue for school board members. Okay, great. Anything in that section that you see as an opportunity?
I think question 41 stands out to me.
I had that one checked also.
Okay.
Is it normal for the school district to seek input from the community and parents when it comes to curriculum? I mean, I don't know, I've never, as a parent of putting 4 kids through the school, I don't ever remember the time that it was, right, nobody ever called them on the phone and said, hey, what do you think about our curriculum at the school? I mean, Dr. Sedano, is that normal for community and parents to, I mean, you talk about beyond textbooks.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that you didn't seek community or parent approval for that. You just went with what you felt was the best.
Right. And working with Dr. Schultz, he shared with us an opportunity with some people that he knows in Vail. But also, what we tried to do also, of course, we have to get better at it, is during parent-teacher conferences, we had a Beyond Textbooks table, just to try and talk to one parent at a time, show on the website what we're doing with Beyond Textbooks, handouts. But no, to answer your question, I've been in other districts where you do have involvement in sharing with parents the curriculum, as far as thinking back to one of my previous districts with the math adoption, there was input from staff at the school and also throughout the district. So yeah, it takes time, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's up here in Metro Phoenix, it's getting more and more divisive, the whole curriculum adoption policy procedure. So there's a lot more focus on it. I know, trying to be way more transparent than you are required by law to be. So that's something that some boards are needing to work on, but it sounds like you're headed in the right direction in terms of having the resources available when parents are on campus. Certainly a good step for sure.
Two other ones that stand out for me as places we can improve are questions 42 and 43.
42 and 43. Okay. Well, and I think that, that's probably part of Beyond Textbooks, I would guess. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Sotero, that kind of rigorous re-examination, making sure it all lines up.
Yeah. And again, like I said, some of the answers in here now would be answered differently if the evaluation was given today.
Yeah. And the one that said the process in place to support evaluation and updating of technology, is that something that you have a technology plan, or what does that look like?
Oh, we're getting there. The predominant, and this is something I shared with the board and we talked about this in December. There's a lot of master plans that we need to have in place. What we're focusing on first right now, based on the necessity of just is a facilities master plan, school safety master plan, and a professional development master plan. We're targeting first right now. Facilities, we have a roof renovation project that's taking place, but also just with the renovation of the school, just painting throughout the school, sports field, athletic fields, upkeep, school safety master plan. We've reached out to the trust, the emergency management services consultant, Jen Corey, did a property walk. We have an SRO full-time on campus. We have a campus security monitor full-time on campus. And the professional development master plan, just as our NAHO schools leadership team on a regular basis, going through professional development, trying to make it more targeted on data analysis, differentiating our professional development. So those have been the three master plans we're focusing on more right now, but we can definitely also improve our technology focus as well. But we do have a new technology director who's doing a great job with just more technology availability. So we are going in the right direction. He's doing a great job.
Great, good.
I don't know this one. It was definitely, COVID provided a lot of challenges with technology, with the online learning, and then on top of that, our long-term IT director passed away. And suddenly now, we're still using all of this stuff because COVID is still here, so we were scrambled to find somebody else to take over that. Then there's a tricky transition there. There was a sudden passing away, so we didn't have passwords and stuff like that to get into the programs we were using.
Mhm. Okay. Alrighty. Anything else in that one?
One that stuck out for me also was question 33, and Dr. Sotero did touch on that as part of his master plan was the safety.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, so it sounds like that maybe the road to improvement is starting
right.
already. Yeah.
You guys feel safe in the school as teachers?
Say that again?
I'm asking the teachers that here, do they feel, oh, honestly, I mean,
Are we allowed to answer?
are they allowed to answer?
You're allowed to ask questions to members of the audience from the table. If you're comfortable answering, it's fine with you. And if not, that's fine with you.
Recently, I've seen a lot of Mr. David today. Yes, so he's been really running around and checking the campus. So like today, so I have Lena in the playground, so I called the office in 5 minutes, he came and should have Lena before the kindergarten come out. I play, sometimes I was in the playground with the private children. Mr. Officer Lozano, that I've seen him quite often as well on school grounds, so that sense of safety.
My blinds don't shut.
Okay.
So if somebody shows up, I can't shut the blinds to protect my children.
Yes.
That was always a concern, because if there were a lockdown, a true lockdown, we'd have to have those blinds completely shut.
Yeah.
And so when I was in that classroom, remember, I had curtains up.
Yeah, I have curtains, but screen still,
And so I mean, fire alarms,
fire alarms still.
intercom. So those are the kind of the safety things that I was concerned about.
We do have walkie-talkies now, but, I mean, they're hard to hear ever, because you're not gonna put it on your belt and walk around with it all the time. You're bending down to talk to kids all the time, and it's falling on you, so I leave it on the desk, and I can hear it every time it goes off, even though it's for me.
There's certainly been an effort to improve.
There has been
as
an
compared
effort.
to the previous years,
Mhm.
so that we still have a lot.
I actually had the kids, just to see if something happened, where I would have to have them in the room, and they would have to be against the bookshelf, or with their feet in them like this, because if their feet were like this, you could see it. They had to sit like this, just to be covered in that room. They could not have their feet even further than, I actually have a tape line in the classroom. They realized they could not have their feet.
What grade do you teach? First grade?
Yeah.
Thanks for being proactive with that.
Ms. Bacon, we've had some comments about where we're doing well and where we can improve. And so it's always something we're working on. We did have an emergency response drill where we planned in coordination with the Pima County Sheriff's Office, lieutenant and several deputies. Where we also work with our staff and students, just as far as with a lockdown, what you do. We're going to have another critical response committee meeting in a few weeks with the Pima County Sheriff's Office and other local first responders. So we have worked on having that collaborative approach. And as far as with the fire drill and the monitors, the intercoms, that's been an ongoing project all semester, just with the company that works with us to make sure that it's as efficient as possible. But made some gains, but we still have some room to grow. We've had multiple school safety meetings in the fall. We also have safety cameras that have been installed throughout campus. So we're getting there, but we still have to keep going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it certainly sounds like this is something that you're aware of, that you want to improve, and maybe it is a goal that the board, monitor this over the next year or so to see, what improvements can be made and how the community is feeling about those improvements. Okay. Shall we move on to standard 4, accountability? So anything that jumped out as positive, and that is questions 52 through 62.
I think question 51 is what we said, keep a positive note on it. 80% approval that we do frequently monitor the budget and see the district pretty much every month, get an update on that. Oh, I'm looking. Okay, you're right, it was 3 pages.
I mean, I'll take 51. It's fine. Yeah, so the standard 4 accountability, starting with question 52.
Yeah, I just didn't realize it was a different one on the other side of the page.
Yeah.
Flipping back and forth. I think on that one, 57 and 58 have fairly strong answers, and I know from my experience on the board that that's another one that has improved greatly in the last year.
Great.
59 is mostly positive also, as is 60.
However, for 61 and 62, that's when I feel that we should be in the always or most of the time category.
Yes.
That's an area that we can improve on.
Yeah, and that's one, again, in the last few months, especially on the getting the student achievement data that has drastically improved.
So 61 and 62 are opportunities to improve.
Yes.
Continue to do what you're doing and maybe figure out other things that will help the board understand where students are, where the data is, and how it's affecting progress toward goals.
I'd say 59 is one that we're pretty strong in, especially with some of the presentations we've been given on the student achievement for the last 6 months.
Ms. Bacon, if I can elaborate more on Mr. Hopkins' comment. It's something that, with the board's direction and working together as a new superintendent, we have the use of data as far as the student achievement. In the second quarter, we started to really differentiate our professional development. One example of our principal and instructional coach working with the secondary teachers, or myself, and our data analyst working with the pre-K to 6 teachers, just identifying data based on DIBELS, the Zella for English learners, the AASA, our measures of academic progress assessments, and just trying to connect with trying to lower the percentage of minimally proficient percent, partially proficient, and connecting that to the letter grade. How we can get 0.6 or a point for every partially proficient student. Just really using the data like what Mr. Hopkins said, trying to really just differentiate our PD a little more, trying to have more interaction from the teachers, the different, primarily in the same area, the same levels, looking at the same data, coming up with a plan of trying to, like, say, example, reduce in a class where maybe there's 10 students at minimally proficient, try and get more to partially proficient because it helps our better grades. So just having those discussions more, that more targeted, strategic, data-driven decision-making in our professional developments, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Good.
I would say question 54 is one that leaves room for improvement. Anyway, but I also want to add that question 56 is another one of those that I feel if the survey was given out today, would be a lot more positive.
Okay.
Number 55 and 52 struck me as there needs to be more unity in those two questions in particular.
Say that again, 52 and
55 and 62.
Oh, that's
62.
55 and 62.
I
Okay.
like 55 and 62, 52.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant 62.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think 55 is one I've seen some improvement on here as well.
Yeah.
where we're,
Yeah, like you said, if we were to retake it, it'd be different.
Good.
But yeah, we're all gonna have different opinions.
Yeah.
We'd like to see more
Yes.
unified answers across the on some of these.
Okay. So it seems like we already talked about where there are opportunities here. So let's go to that last standard advocacy, and that is questions 63 to 72. So let's start with positives.
Well, we are very good about being transparent to the community about what we do.
I was just going to mention that one also.
I think we always have been.
Great.
Ms. Bacon,
Yes.
can I just elaborate on that some more on question 68 where it says transparent and accountable manner? The data shows 60% most of the time. And just some examples, some artifacts include the annual financial report in October, budget revision in December. Carried forward was stated multiple times, and the amount also at our December 6th board meeting. The inflation stipend came from fiscal year 22 carried forward. That was stated in the meeting. I believe also became more, the public became more aware of that also as well. As a result of the meeting, the minimum wage increase coming from maintenance and operations budget, the M&O being up $400,000 for fiscal year 23. So those kind of comments, the actual numbers being stated so that the staff knows where the inflation stipend is coming from, where the minimum wage increase is coming from, but also it's getting out into the news throughout the community, the local newspaper also having that information as well.
Yeah, that's a great step. It's public education funding is difficult to understand, so the more you can talk about it, I think the better it is for the community and for your staff and for everyone involved.
63 to me is a positive point in here and an important one because we're such a small rural school district with the powers that be at both the county and the state level tend to forget that we're here sometimes. Figure the closest town to us that's bigger than us is in Mexico. So we're 2 hours away from an American town that's bigger than us. And I think Pima County sometimes seems to think that we're in Maricopa because we're so far removed from everything else in Pima. So I think that's an important one, and I think it's one that we've been doing well.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard about this, but the Rural Alliance, ASBA's Rural Alliance, is having a town hall to talk about rural issues. I should know the date. I don't, but I will include it in the information that I send to you. But that might be a good way for you to connect with other rural districts throughout Arizona. And really it's to bring you together to talk about what are the issues facing rural Arizona in terms of education and how can they be addressed from a policy perspective. So that might be something valuable for at least a couple of you to go to if that's something you're interested in. And I'll send the information on that in the email that I send as a follow-up. Okay, where do we see opportunities here?
On number 67, I find that the public is not well informed of the board's roles and responsibilities. They believe that as a board member, that an individual board member has more power and authority than what we actually have. And what's been nice lately is Rodney and Dr. Sotero working together have been more inclusive to the other board members of what we bring up in agenda items. But as you probably know, being a board member, the board president can definitely be the gatekeeper of the agenda if they so choose to do that, and keep, other items that maybe other board members would like to have on the agenda. But the average person out there thinks that that you have the ability to be a lot more powerful than what you really are as a board member. And as a board, we're powerful. As individuals, we're not. And so I think that's something I try to inform people of all the time, so they understand exactly what my roles and responsibilities are as a board member. And I appreciate Rodney very much for allowing us to have agenda items on the agenda that are important to us, Dr. Sotero. And so I think that is something
That's something that changed just a little bit over a year ago. That was when we changed the policy on creating agendas. Before it was that the superintendent created the agenda with the board president on behalf of the board. And there were some issues there, so the board voted, I believe, last December and changed the policy to any board member can place an item on the agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's you're on your way to making that better. And I don't think there's any board that I've worked with when they've done this that says the public is well informed on their roles and responsibilities, because it's hard to inform the public about it. In what format do you have that? And so that I think that's something that all boards struggle with a little bit.
Every board member has gotten very specific questions about something. It's like, okay, that's actually principal or superintendent, or not to the teacher. But like the assumption is that if you're on the board, you're in charge of all of it. And I told a few people, as the board as a whole, we only have one employee, who's Dr. Sotero.
Right. And that is hard for people to understand, because they see you as powerful. And it's not that you're not powerful. You have influence. I mean, that's how we kind of described it at new board member orientation. When ASBA talks about board members having power, it's really legal authority power. But you have a lot of influence. And so people see that, they know that, and and they think you can do more than you can. So always knowing what those policies are in terms of the public concern and complaint, and what that process is in your school district will help you as board members get problems solved without you getting involved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any place else that that we need, that are opportunities for improvement?
Number 64 shocked me a little because I always thought the school did a good job.
It surprised me too.
Yeah, I always thought the school did a good job with keeping that. So it shocked me a little seeing that there were two people that voted never on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one that kind of stood out to me as well.
Number 65, I think. I would like that score to be better.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
Not just a general, I feel about this and I feel about this ever since I got on the board and I try to be an advocate for every chance I get. I think the population that gets lost in our schools, I mean, I really do. I think that they're not they're a minority, they're a small minority, there's major cultural and economic issues involved. And I think a lot of our Native American kids get left behind. And so.
Well, sometimes they feel it.
And so I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that I just think that I talk with a lot of parents, Native American parents, and of course, as a football coach, I have a lot of Native American kids that play for me. And I just think that they get lost in the shuffle, you know, and we have it. So I'm probably one of the ones that voted negative, put a negative on there, because I just think that we could do a better job in the school district in addressing the Native American kids. Hard population, right? Hard population.
Ms. Bacon?
Yes.
I do see the points made. I do want to highlight that we are going, I believe, in the right direction. For question 64, modeling cultural, racial, and ethnic understanding and sensitivity. The examples or artifacts that I put down were, we are working on establishing more of our JOM focus. We do have a JOM coordinator director who has established an after-school tutoring program. It is taking time, but it's growing. Real good community outreach, I believe, that we're seeing. Also, we had our International Day of Peace. I got to see a good partnership with the mayor delegation from Sonoita. So just really embracing the culture there, but also with the Tohono Nation. So there is room for improvement, but I believe that we do have some examples that are helping us go in that right direction. But it is going to take time. Mm-hmm. I believe that we have some good programs in place to build from.
Okay. Anything else in that we need to talk about? Okay. So now I think what I'd like to do is talk with you a little bit about, what themes we've seen in this. And then we'll talk about what you'd like to focus on in terms of perhaps looking at goals or other ways to improve. So what themes did you all come out with, think of as you were looking at this? Communication, yeah.
In addition to communication, it seems like we need for regular evaluations. It's come up in a few different areas here.
Student evaluation,
Mm-hmm.
student data.
Yeah, like student evaluation, like it's evaluating staff based on student success, we didn't have such a good score on, even, and this is the first time I've known of the board doing a self-evaluation. So I think that kind of across the board seems to be a theme that we are improving on, but it has room for improvement.
Okay.
And kind of like with the student performance evaluation, now that's moved along with the presentations for Mr. KC and the systems. I think we're taking steps in that direction, but that does seem to be a theme where the district could stand some improvement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that data analysis kind of stood out to me as something that the board has expressed through both this survey and tonight verbally, an interest in having more of. And I suspect, and Dr. Soltero, correct me if I'm wrong, but I suspect disaggregating data in a small community is going to be difficult sometimes, because you can't really have public conversations if you've got really small, small groups of students who you need to identify. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I really believe our data analyst really, from what I can remember, just going off of the two presentations to the board on the data, he does an exceptional job of breaking down if we have 4 or 6 more students to get to that next proficiency level with the Zella. He does do an exceptional job of trying to break down the data as much as he possibly can. So, just from the 2 board meetings we've had, we're trying to just break it down as best as possible, the different categories, partially proficient to highly proficient. So that's kind of my take on that. But we always have to try and keep focusing to be more, continue. The quarterly updates. It sounds like that's something that we can focus on the rest of this school year and calendar year. It sounds like it's something very positive to do, just to have ongoing updates for the board.
Yep. It sounds like that's something the board's interested in, so.
The good thing about those updates, I mean, when the school's letter grades came out this year, if that was all the information we got, we've kind of gone into a panic mode. But we had Mr. Casey here give us the whole presentation and explain, we're really very, very close to being 1 grade higher than we are. And then not only that, but then between he and Dr. Soltero, and then Dr. Soltero coming up with, okay, here's our strategy and how we bring up that little bit to the next letter group. So that, if we had just gotten the grade, it would have been a panic mode, but then to also think, okay, this is why it's that, and this is our plan to improve it. I think we're on the right track for that, but that's another instance where just getting that really thorough evaluation of the information really helps to kind of crystallize what it is we're looking at.
For sure, and I think it's critical to get those updates, because with those goals in mind and our differentiated PD, I want to make sure that our teachers and our paraprofessionals, everyone's looking to help these students, and we're moving in the right direction. So I think just those frequent updates would help us understand that and have confidence in that.
I'm sorry, go ahead. You go ahead. So I know you.
So the board, we hire a superintendent. And, that's why we stated that superintendent is our only employee. We take the money the state gives us, we take the students that we have, and then we rely upon the superintendent to direct us in the way that we need to go to educate those kids with the best education we can possibly give them. Everything else, like I said earlier, is window dressing. What color the girl volleyball team is going to wear, who's going to go to LA for the Disneyland trip. A million things come before this board, right? But the most important part of it is the education of those kids. Getting those reviews, letting us know how the kids are doing, then we see how the superintendent is doing, because we're counting on him to lead the ship, right? I don't know if you guys agree with this. So the most important thing that we do is if evaluate how the school's going, and then we support the superintendent, and then we evaluate the superintendent. I think that's our job in the nutshell right there, is, you hear that, Rodney? You know, and so far, and I'm gonna tell you, the board has been very impressed with Dr. Sotero. We've been very impressed with him, right? Well, that he has a lot of different challenges and a lot of different directions, but we've been very impressed with that. And in 3 years, I believe, so when we sit down and evaluate Dr. Sotero, we're gonna look at those numbers, and they're gonna be a lot better, right? They're gonna be a lot better than they are now. I really believe that. And that's where we're looking. And so.
Ms. Bacon, can I just elaborate more from what the board stated about the student data evaluation, our data analyst and our team? We got the ADE letter grade for 9 to 12, we're at a D, we're at 46. We're 3 points from a 49 for a C. So we began to have discussions in November about how critical the English learner subgroup is. We have 5 out of 10 points on the letter grade that come from English EL subgroup. We've got some good ideas. We have our English learner teachers and myself going to the OLS conference. From other English learner coaches and staff throughout the state, how to have a more specific effort, an English learner committee, or an English learner focus. And just so that discussion has started, and just for us trying to be more targeted and more specific. So it's also something that the board and we worked on, just trying to really hit that subgroup. So that's just an example of using the data and having it drive our professional development and instruction.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to add, I think we have the greatest bunch of teachers. You know, I think our teachers from top to bottom are really good teachers. I've been really impressed for a long time with the caliber of teachers that we have. And so we're lucky to have you guys. Even a first grade teacher, what's your name?
Very good. So any other themes that we saw? One that I saw was kind of the strategic plan part, just kind of focusing on vision, mission. It sounds like that's something that you're going to be working on. I maybe call that strategic direction. So that's something I think, the board could work with Dr. Sotero to come up with a plan to address that. Any other themes that you see in here? The assessment part, doing your own assessment, the superintendent assessment, really focus on governance. That's more of a governance focus, making sure that the board's doing the work that they should be doing to ensure their own success, but also the success of the superintendent. So that's something, I'm glad that you use this board self-evaluation tool. I think it's the most robust that I've seen and really targeted on what boards do. And then in the future, if you're interested, we've just created a new superintendent evaluation tool as well. So that's something that I could provide some information on. I know that like a full formal evaluation probably won't be done right away, depending on what your policy says, but I could send you some information about that as well. Okay, so what we would do next is talk a little bit about how you're going to use this information and create some goals around I think the theme areas that we were able to identify theme areas and communication evaluation/data, and then strategic direction. And what I'll do in my summary is I'll let you know what questions are under those themes, so that you can look back at that and say, okay, what are the issues that came up under communication, and how can we look at that to develop some goals for the board? And maybe it's, it could be something simple, and this happened, almost every time I've done this with a board. No, I'm going to say every time I've done this with a board, communication is one of the major things, because we don't always spend time we're thinking about how the district communicates. We don't think specifically about how we communicate as board members and as a full board. So, there may be things that you want to do as simple as just, you have a local paper, the board president publishing something, once a month or once a quarter, just to give people information about what's going on in the district and what the work that the board is focusing on. So, it could be something like that. It could be a district newsletter. There's lots of different ways that you could, kind of improve that communication piece, so that the community is involved, and not just the community, but your internal stakeholders too. Teachers don't always know what the board's doing and the focus that the board has. So that's something that comes up almost every single time. So once I group this and put questions underneath it, you'll have a better sense of, okay, what were we talking about and how do we want to address these issues? And some of them you're already addressing in terms of, the data analysis. You're already improving into having quarterly updates at board meetings, which, so maybe you don't need to do anything there. Maybe you see how that works, let that happen for a full school year and then reevaluate. Anything jump out to you? Any ideas that came to any board members about things that you think you'd like to work on going forward based on this data?
The things that I'm thinking of are things that I already see the district improving.
Okay.
I fully anticipate that we will continue in that direction. Like you said, the communication both within the community, within the school district, within just the board and the administration has been a need for, has shown a need for improvement, but has also been improving. I fully expect that trajectory to continue. And the same thing with engaging the local community and local stakeholders. That's something that for a long time I saw a great need for improvement in, and I see us moving already in that direction pretty solidly. And again, I hope and expect to see that trajectory continue as well.
Great. Okay. So what's next? What we would encourage you to do is take a look at the summary that I send. Decide, again, you have theme areas, maybe some goals from each of those theme areas, so that you can, and you could even, because you have not gone a full year, you could kind of talk about the quarterly updates on student achievement. That could be a goal that's already in progress and you can accomplish. So, and then after you decide what goals you're going to have, then you'd need to figure out how you're going to go about doing it. So we don't have time today to come up with goals because that takes some time. But I think hopefully you feel like you have enough information, enough data to go ahead and create some of those goals for yourself. Any questions about goals and board goals versus district goals? And I don't hear any questions, so I'm gonna let that go. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for having me with you. Is there anything else that we need to review for the good of the order? Any thoughts, feedback that you want to provide to me or to one another about the process?
I'd say this right here has been very helpful, just to kind of break it down and also give people an opportunity to speak on what their concerns, especially from our 2 board members that weren't part of the evaluation process when it happened, but to get their input on it and hear their concerns has been very valuable. To get feedback from you and some suggestions from you is also very good. Thank you for that.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. It's the best part of my job to work with boards, so happy to do that. I will be sending a SurveyMonkey link so that you can do an evaluation on the training tonight. And that's all I have, unless there's anything else you'd like to discuss.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Bacon.
you.
Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.